Yeah. Here we go. Are you happy? Happy that we have begun a new week and thankful for where we were, where we are, where we're going. Hey, Pilgrims, good morning. Very good Monday morning to you. Monday, the 13th day of May, 2019. I'm George Grant, and welcome to today's edition of Good Day Grenada. Yes, sirree. Just feels good to be alive. If you're wondering why I'm smiling, I don't think I have anything in particular to be smiling about this morning, except that I'm just happy to be alive and seeing the start of a new week. Regardless of what challenges may come my way, I'm going to be smiling and thankful. I'm alive. I'm breathing. I can touch. I can see. I can hear. Yeah. So good to be a child of God. Folks, let's take a look at the rundown, see what we got cooking here. Oh, there they go. We're ready. Benedict says it's a marvelous Monday. Hey, maybe that's the way to describe it, Benedict. A marvelous Monday. Yeah, man. Good to have you aboard with us. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. TF says, family. I'm glad we're still friends, TF. And he says it's raining in New York today. Hey, maybe that's why Mags hasn't shown up yet. Probably got drenched on the way to work. I don't know. And John saying good morning to Gigi and the rest of the world. Hey guys, so nice to see you this morning. I hope that you all have a wonderful week as well. Now, let's take a look at the rundown. It's ironic that I'm sitting here smiling and very happy to be alive this morning. But I gotta be honest with you. When I was putting this show together last night, I had to engage in some very, very deep thought. Because I thought, maybe some people might interpret, just some, might interpret what you're going to see this morning as being a little bit too close to home. Know what I'm talking about? Sometimes when you point out certain things about people, they take offense, even though you may have meant absolutely no offense whatsoever. Based on what you've learned through life, you may simply be trying to share something with them, hoping that they too would enjoy what you are enjoying. And that's the reason why I titled or I captioned the first segment this morning. It says here, 2 videos which may be too close to home. Well, let me tell you what those are about. Actually, I'm just going to give you the titles of the videos. The first one is captioned, Go 24 hours without complaining. You still there? Okay, I hope you are. Because I want you to wait, watch this, and then after you have watched it and absorbed what is being said, you sit and think, hey, maybe that turkey, George, wasn't too crazy after all. The second one is captioned, Stop looking for shortcuts. Rather, try and provide solutions. Enough said about segment number 1 so far. We'll get back to that in a wee bit. Yes, we do have your national report this morning. And do we have a scorcher for you? Yeah, man. Those of you who joined us yesterday have already or probably saw what we're going to be running by you this morning. But I thought it was important enough that although the program the segment yesterday ran, I think, a little over an hour, we're not going to bring you the entire thing this morning. But I thought, here are some excerpts that I should really share with my pilgrims this morning. Some frank talk about LIAT. Whee! Yeah, get ready. And at the end of the program, we're also going to be telling you a little bit about some events coming up in the New York and Washington, D.C. areas. I received a little note this morning from Jerry Hopkin, and he's asked me to share this with you. So we're going to be doing that in just a wee bit. All right? So that essentially is your rundown for this Monday morning. Let's get right into it. As I mentioned before, I know that the first segment this morning could ruffle a few feathers, unfortunately. And if it does, that would be sad. These two videos will be speaking directly to some of you. And sometimes, like I said, the truth offends. But don't be offended. Don't be offended. Instead, listen to what is being said and see where you may have fallen short. In fact, where all of us may have fallen short. Let's try to do better. Let today be the first day of the remainder of your lives. Let's start to fulfill our dreams and be really happy. Enough said. Check this out.
Yeah, no, it was fun. No, I didn't do the essay. Well, because I have 8 hours on a plane to do it, Mom. Yeah, no, I'm gonna... Mom, can I... Okay, I'm at my seat, so... Alright, Mom, I have to go. Excuse me. Hi, would you mind maybe just helping? Thank you, thanks.
Can you just hang on 1 minute?
Oh.
This is expensive.
Yeah, okay.
You can sit now.
Thank you. Welcome passengers to flight 2457 en route to Phoenix, Arizona.
Excuse me. Hey. Hey, can you just lower your music a little bit? I'm just trying to sleep here. I just got away from my kids. I just need a little bit.
Ladies and gentlemen, the captain has turned on the fasten seatbelt sign. We are now crossing a zone of turbulence. Please return to your seats and keep your seatbelts fastened. Thank you. Hello, fellow passengers. We're doing our best to get you there safely, but as a precaution, please prepare for a crash landing.
This is a tough message to hear, but let me explain. What if we woke up tomorrow with only what we were grateful for today? What would we have left? This should put it into perspective. It's so easy to get worked up on a daily basis. If you want to find a reason to get annoyed, you will. If you want to find a reason to complain about someone, you will. If you want to see something get on your nerves, you will. There are countless opportunities throughout the day to get frustrated, disappointed, or annoyed at the people, places, and situations around you. The challenge is, we don't see our lives as they are. We see our lives worse than they are. We shouldn't waste a second of our life complaining, because complaining doesn't solve problems, it attracts them. Whenever we complain about pain or a strain or any situation in our life, we're stopping ourselves from change. And complaining is contagious. When we do it, we give it to everyone else around us, which means now we're surrounded by a complaining culture. And we all know this. Spending today complaining about yesterday won't make tomorrow any better. When we complain about our family, it's so important to remember that there's someone out there who just lost their parents. When we complain about our jobs, it's so important to recognize that someone out there just lost theirs. When we complain about college or university or school, it's important to remember there are millions of children without access to education. If today was the last day of your life, how would you change the way you speak? If today was the last day of your life, how would you change the way you think? If today was the last day of your life, how would you change the way you behave? How would you change the way you connect with the people closest to you? How would you change the way you interact with anyone that you meet or see? You never know when the last thing you said is going to be the last time that that person hears your voice. Are you happy with the last thing you said to a loved one? Are you happy with the last thing you thought about them? Are you happy with the last way you behaved with someone in your life? Go 24 hours without complaining and see how your life changes. The secret to having it all is knowing you already do. And remember, be careful what you say to someone today, because you may not have tomorrow to take it back.
There you go. That guy's good. By the way, we must give credit where credit is due. And I'd like to say thank you very much, John, for sharing that with me. You know, as soon as you sent a little note saying, maybe worth sharing, or words to that effect, as soon as I saw it, I thought, got to share that on Monday morning. Thank you so much, John. I'm going to get to the second part in just a wee bit, but I don't want to get too far behind here. So let's say good morning. We've already said good morning to Benedict, TF, and John. Good morning, Pedro, Martin, Carmichael, Simon, Margaret. Oh, she is there. And Margaret says she's there. She's just quiet. Margaret's quiet? What happened? It must be raining in New York. Okay. Bernard's there, and Donna Joseph, and Ryan Kipling. Oh, by the way, hey, somebody here. TF says, wonderful piece, well articulated. TF, yeah, I'm glad you see it that way, and I pray that everybody else out there in our little group this morning sees it that way, because it was well intentioned. Now, the second video, again, talks about us as a people. It shows how some of the people that we look up to, admire, envy, became wealthy. And then it issues a challenge. Pilgrims, I want you to check this out.
One of the major reasons why millions of Africans live below the poverty line is our belief that magic wands will suddenly mint money for us. How many cups of mustard seeds did Mark Zuckerberg eat that made him an instant billionaire? How many bottles of anointing oil did Jeff Bezos drink that turned him into an overnight owner of Amazon? Some people spend weeks on the mountain praying for financial breakthrough without knowing what to do to be rich. They just want to be rich anyhow. It doesn't work that way. This is how potential billionaires pray. Dear Lord, Nigeria has an electricity problem. Our roads are death traps. Healthcare system is in shambles. Our youths are sold for slavery because there's no job for them. 25 million Nigerians are disabled. Lord, please baptize me with fresh ideas on how to solve some of these problems and connect me to the right partners to make it happen. Thank you, Lord. God will definitely download creative ideas into their minds. The major secret of billionaires is their ability to find solutions to the challenges of humanity. All of them created solutions that brought them billions. Presently, Bill Gates is spending millions of dollars in search of renewable energy. By the time he finds one and becomes a major player in the electricity industry, we'll say he's lucky. But we forget that he didn't pray for financial breakthrough. He only found a solution to a global problem. Wealthy people don't necessarily look for money. They create solutions, and money will follow them. Larry Page and Sergey Brin went all out to help humanity find things faster on the internet, and billions of dollars followed them. Mark Zuckerberg created platforms for socialization, and over $71 billion followed him. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak went all out to reduce the size of computer, and billions of dollars followed them. You! What problems are you solving for humanity? Dear friends, it's time to change our thinking and prayer pattern. Stop looking for shortcuts to the top. Let's start looking for the problems we can solve for humanity.
Aha. That one was a little bit more upbeat, I confess. But what do you think? What do you think? Good advice? I think it's a nice way to start this week. Gives us some positive stuff to think of as we go through this week. By the way, Ryan said here a little while ago, and he's referring to the first piece here, he says, you can never take back what you say, so be careful what you say. Also been joined by Fitzroy. He's also experiencing the showers in New York this morning. Okay, folks, so much of that. Let's now get down to some business and take a little break here before we dive into Friday's edition of the National Report.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Together with you, our customers, we energize our community.
Together with you, we energize our economy.
We are working together to give our nation a better tomorrow.
With you, we energize our future. Together, we energize our nation.
Thank you for partnering with us as we energize our Spice Island.
Renlec, energizing our Grenada.
I'm always on the move. Training, traveling, competing. So it's good to know I have Co-op Bank in the palm of my hand.
Introducing e-banking, one of many customer convenience services from Grenada Cooperative Bank, and there's more to come.
It's swift, simple, and secure.
Welcome home.
All right. All right. Why am I laughing? I began laughing this morning. TF posted a comment posted a comment here after you watched the second video that I showed this morning. He said, that piece is just looking at maybe the converted businessmen. Why about those, I guess he meant what about those who earn riches by exploiting the unfortunate? TF, do me a favor. When the program's over this morning, either go to Facebook, which is probably where you are right now, or Grenada Broadcast or YouTube, wherever, and take a look at the program again, okay? In particular, the first of the videos that I showed this morning. That's why I'm laughing. By the way, Anthony has also joined us. And Anthony is saying, good morning, everyone. Share the live. Lots of good info here. Thank you, Anthony, for remembering. Folks, here comes the National Report.
Extensive work to be undertaken on the St. Andrew's Methodist Primary School over the weekend. Details to this story and more in the National Report. With the details to the news for Friday, May 10th, 2019, I am Rikisha St. Louis. The Ministries of Education and Works have given the commitment to management and faculty of the St. Andrew's Methodist Primary School that work will commence over the weekend to rectify infrastructural concerns that surfaced last week. A collapsed platform and water tank resulted in the suspension of school for 2 weeks. Education Minister Honorable Emmeline Pear and representatives from the Ministry of Works and Infrastructure met with the management and staff of the institution to discuss the way forward. Extensive work will be done over the weekend to accommodate the resumption of school from Monday. Minister Pear highlighted temporary changes that will take effect once classes resume.
So, number one of the buildings, which houses 2 classrooms and the school feeding program, that building will be cordoned off, and students and teachers would not be allowed to use that building. But the main building of the school, which houses maybe more than 90% of the school, will be used, and the school feeding program will be relocated to the Home Economic Center, which is next door to the school. All the facilities are there to accommodate, and so the cooking of the meals will take place at that building.
Permanent Secretary Mrs. Marina Jessamy says work on the building will be done in 3 phases, which can take up to 8 weeks to complete.
Building 6 is where the problem is, and they will not be allowed to use that building Friday to remove whatever items they would have in Building 6. And we will arrange with the contractor to cordon off Building 6 to ensure that children will not be allowed close to that building because it's not stable. And the cost for the work is about $25,000. The scope of works will be completed on May 10th, and the engineering estimates as well. The duration of this work can happen between 6 and 8 weeks.
Silbert Prescott, manager of the school, is happy that relief is on its way for the students and the teachers.
We are extremely happy that we are able to work along with the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Works to iron out or look at some solutions so that the classes could resume.
Government is putting structures in place to enhance the road network and farm roads in some parts of the country. Minister for Infrastructural Development, Honorable Gregory Bowen, provided an update on government's plans during an interview with the Government Information Service.
We have now signed the contract for the St. Patrick's Road. We're going out to tenders for the Kuwaiti farm roads, and we have the East-Western corridor to be done, both funded again by Kuwait and by the UK SIF, and that's the grant of $28 million that was given to us. So we are well on our route to have the many roads being done. We are importing bitumen for our road repairs, and this is a significant problem that we do have. We pay for the bitumen, that's Trinidad and Tobago's, Lake Asphalt and other suppliers. We pay, and it is months because we're such a small purchaser. You got to pay in advance. In others, sometimes we pay for 3 shipments before we get them, but we pay in advance because we know of the lengthy period that it will take to reach us. So we pay. So the first shipment come and we keep pounding, and the second come. Now we're planning to use our embassy in Trinidad and Tobago to be at the doorsteps of the supplier so we can get our bitumen with which to mix our asphalt and we can maintain our roads.
This is the National Report. More news after the break.
The safety on our roads make this a major priority. Health of our people, a crucial necessity. Accidents happen when road users are either irresponsible or inconsiderate in one way or the other. Play your part. Reduce your speed. Be attentive. It is your personal responsibility. Let 2017 be the start of no more road fatality. Be safe, be seen, be smart. So let's wise up as a nation, get to your destination safe.
Welcome back. Grenada is hosting a regional summit that is examining the Caribbean's preparedness, response and recovery strategies as the 2019 hurricane season approaches. The 2-day summit, which concludes on Saturday, is organized by Adventist Development and Relief Agency, ADRA, and the Caribbean Union Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. ADRA is a humanitarian agency operated by the Seventh-day Adventist Church to provide individual and community development and disaster relief. The summit is exploring avenues for increasing financial resources to meet disaster response needs, develop a response protocol for church leaders at the conference, foster closer collaboration between the agency and community service, among others.
This is an opportune time for us to take stock of where we are, examine our levels of preparedness, look at the challenges, identify the needs, make important decisions that would provide the foundation for a better prepared and safer region, not only for us, but also for our children.
That was Director of Community Services, Pastor Ashton O'Neill. Minister with responsibility for disaster management, Senator Dr. Winston Garwe, says government is committed to collaborate with agencies and organizations to improve its response mechanism.
This government have taken this climate change scenario very seriously. And we have recognized that we have to respond. And we have to move beyond doing business as usual if we are to survive. And we have to take our people forward and to serve humanity. Yeah, it's a government. But it's one thing that I stand for and I advocate in cabinet and elsewhere, that we have to respond and respond adequately to the needs of people. And it doesn't matter where you're coming from, we have to do it. When we look at what is happening in our environment and the degradation we're seeing and the frequency and the intensity of the cyclones that pass our way every year, we have to wake up and realize that it's much more than just talking it. But we have to react.
Acting National Disaster Coordinator Superintendent Sylvan McIntyre stressed the importance of collaboration, communication, and coordination in effective disaster preparedness and response.
If we have to
achieve disaster preparedness and effective response, there must be some aspect or some composition of good collaboration. Secondly, communication. Communication is a pivotal element to achieve any desired level of success. Whether the mode of communication is established, it must be understood, it must be tested before, during, and after any kind of event and any potential emergency or any form of disaster. It means, therefore, that the aspects of communication must be established so that it can complement the component of collaboration.
The summit has been held under the theme Effective Disaster Preparedness, Response and Recovery. Finally, in the news, officials from the UN Women Executive Board will be in Grenada for discussion with the Ministry of Social Development and other partners. Cabinet has agreed to the visit by UN Women Executive Board to Grenada on May 21st. Grenada has in the past received both financial and technical support from UN Women to develop responses to gender-based violence.
The Minister of Social Development, Honorable Delma Thomas, is playing a leading role in this respect. We have seen a dramatic increase in support because of her initiative and because of the number of programs that she has put in place in the ministry. We have seen the UN Common Board and other financial institutions to give support because they are satisfied with the work of the Ministry of Social Development. So the minister is on board and is fully engaged in this process.
That was Trade Minister Honorable Oliver Joseph. That story just ended the national report for today, Friday, May 10th. Let's recap the top story. Extensive work to be undertaken on St. Andrew's Methodist Primary School over the weekend. On behalf of everyone here who made this newscast possible, I'm Rikisha St. Louis saying thank you for joining us. Until next time.
Alrighty, folks, there you have it. Friday's edition of the National Report. Now, there is a note here, or a couple of notes, I should say. One from John. John says, read the St. Andrew's School. He's referring to the newscast you were just looking at. He says, one word, maintenance. John, maintenance. And John Crow Alexander says, re-infrastructure. Does it have to collapse before we see a problem? John Crow. Enough said. All right. Now, going back just a wee bit, John Crow also said here, I heard that media people had to pay for accreditation for the big concert in Grenada. He's referring to the Buju Banton show on Saturday night. He says, I'm awaiting confirmation. If that is so, we are at a new low as media professionals for those who paid to play. Paying for access to news is very wrong. And Margaret, that caught Mag's attention. And she said, John Crow, I saw that discussion also. And to John and Margaret, I say, I also saw that discussion. Actually, there was a whole long thread there, which I read through last night. So once I saw these comments here on the box, I decided to go back to social media, Facebook, which is where I read the comments, take a look so I could share with you, because in all fairness, a description or an explanation about the charges that were levied against journalists, an explanation was provided. And I'm looking at the page now. It says, this page isn't available. The link you followed may be broken, or the page may have been removed. It's right there, right there. So I don't know what happened. But yes, there was an explanation provided why the charges were being levied. Didn't make a lot of sense, but nevertheless, one was provided. Okay. Okay, folks, let me see. Where are we now? Take another little break here. And then, we're going to come back with some frank talk about LIAT.
Grenadian General Insurance Company, strength and stability. Grenadian General Insurance Company, tell your friends, tell your family. We cover householders comprehensive, motor and even fire too. Contractors all risk burglary, public liability, professional indemnity, directors liability, and wait, we still have more. Come and find out more what you're waiting for.
We are located on Scott Street, St. George's. For more information, call 440-2434.
Tell everybody.
I'm always on the move. Training, traveling, competing. So it's good to know I have Co-op Bank in the palm of my hand.
Introducing e-banking, one of many customer convenience services from Grenada Cooperative Bank. And there's more to come.
It's swift, simple, and secure.
Welcome home.
My name is Jennifer James, and I've been making confectionaries for the past 7 years. Growing up as a little girl, I always wanted to make these little things. Forge, sugar cake, tamarind ball, these little things. I read something actually, and it said that tamarind itself is very good because it eliminates fat from the liver. You get the mature tamarind and you crack it, you shell it out. I would add a little baking soda, some spices. I would leave it to rest probably for about 2 hours and then add my sugar and just start kneading. I usually knead it hard enough so that I can roll it. When I finish roll it, I will paste it with the actual white or brown sugar. And you have a nice tamarind ball. I have been providing food for the liver. You get the mass now. I started producing tamarind ball to sell for the school children. I thought I could advance somewhere. So I went to food fair and I asked one of the salespersons there if they would be interested in selling my tamarind ball. And she told me yes. She told me I'm to bring 20 packets to start with. It was really a joy for me because I wanted to extend on my little business. My name is Jennifer James and I work with the food fair to provide you with tamarind balls.
All right, folks, just before I fire up the LIAT issue here, Margaret is explaining here. She says, in summary, the explanation stated that the cost, or whether we're charging, or whether they wanted to charge the journalist, was for the cost of producing the ID tag, which had to conform to Buju's design. Okay, essentially, yeah, that's essentially right, Margaret. But I really wish that I could have read the explanation in more detail to the audience. Anthony the Rig says, I must say thank God for social media. Many eyes that some would like to see shut are wide open. Yes, Anthony, ain't that the truth? Now, folks, some frank talk about LIAT. That was the topic under discussion on yesterday's edition of Sundays with George Grant. While the program ran for a little more than an hour, we've only pulled out about 23 minutes or so for you this morning. Take note. You will be hearing about genuine, painful, and rational solutions to get LIAT out of its current morass. My guests were Mr. Siddiqui Sylvester, who's a travel agent here. We were also joined by a gentleman who's an aviation consultant, Mr. James Lynch. He is a barb agent, but currently lives in Canada. Very outspoken gentleman, as you're about to find out. And my third guest was Mr. Terry Forrester, who is a political person and also a very, very outspoken public advocate. Check this out.
I think that LIAT is an essential component of Caribbean life. Without a LIAT, I can't see many things happening in the Caribbean. Unfortunately, we're not joined by land, so we have to travel to different countries by air. That being said, over the years, there are many private enterprises that have been engaged in providing air services to Caribbean residents. Air Caribbean, EC Express, CaribJet, Carib Express, you name them, Helen Air, so forth, so on. Unfortunately, they've all packed up, right? In my opinion, LIAT has survived because it is essential for the people of the Caribbean and the governments to ensure that we have some form of movement between the islands in the Caribbean. That being said, again, Trinidad has what, a million or so population, Barbados 250,000. For the smaller countries, Tortola, BVI, Grenada, some of the smaller countries that LIAT serves, they don't have a very large population base. So when it comes to moving people and people having the ability to move consistently, it's not like Trinidad or Barbados or Guyana, for example, right? But they still have to move people between the smaller territories, whether it's Tortola, BVI, as I said, Grenada, St. Vincent, Dominica, right? LIAT has tried many different ways of and changing CEOs, boards of directors. They have not been successful. And it is not solely, I think, because they have not tried, but to me, it's a complex situation that most of these carriers have faced in the Caribbean. economies of scale. You purchase in a few aircraft. When you want to buy parts, it's a few parts. The cost of doing business is quite different to, say, an American Airlines or some other major company, Virgin or British Airways, so forth, so on. And they need to follow or find a model whereby, as I think is being proposed now, whereby if you need the flight, then you have to make a contribution to ensure that the flight breaks even. Now, there's one thing that over the years I have proposed, and I don't know why it hasn't been done. As I say, if you live in Bridgetown, for example, and you're going to, say, Spicetown or wherever, or you live in St. George's in Grenada and you're going to Granans, a bus can leave practically empty. And by the time you get to where you go, you pick up a number of persons on the road and you cover the expenses of your trip. However, you can't do that. You leave Antigua and you're going to Barbados, that's it. No stops, so you can't pick up anyone in the air. However, it is essential that the aircraft fills as many seats as possible. So the proposal was for LIAT to do a last-minute seat sale. So 1 hour before the flight is about to depart, you basically check in your purse, your people, no one's on standby, you close off, and then you offer a base fare, including, of course, with the departure taxes, etc., to someone who shows up. And the return, of course, will have to be at whatever price is available, because you're not getting the return at that base fare, or that basic fare. You're getting it at whatever is available for when you want to come back, simply because you must have a return ticket to travel, say, from Antigua to Barbados or Grenada to Tortola or wherever you're going. That way, you present opportunities for persons who want to travel at the last minute.
Okay.
To then, however, let me just finish this statement. A person, however, who has an appointment wouldn't take that chance, simply because if you don't have a confirmed flight, you miss your appointment. But that's one way, in my opinion, of raising revenue that LIAT should be looking at. There are other things I would like to say, but continue.
All right. Before we continue, I'd like to, first of all, welcome Terry Forrester. He's joining us here right now. Terry is a politician. He's also a very, very vocal social advocate. And I'm going to let Terry jump in here in just a wee bit. But first of all, James, I want you to respond to what Siddiqui was saying a few minutes ago.
You are absolutely correct in that LIAT is not the same business model as American Airlines or even smaller airlines in the US or the developed countries. LIAT is a unique model, but it does have some commonalities. One is that you cannot operate an airline based on walking around with a hat begging for money, like Mr. Gonzalez has done. Where you run an airline properly is by proper fares and proper revenue earning. If LIAT is going from Antigua to St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Grenada, and normally they don't make enough fares for the passengers who are going to Grenada, then you increase the fares to Grenada. Or you go to the government of Grenada and say, listen, you need to subsidize the fares or it's not even breaking even. You don't go around begging for money. even at a political level, to run a business or to run an airline. Who runs a business that way? I mean, if you run in a business doing some trucking and you have a regular regular route to carry some stuff, you start doing it and then you beg for money along the way, or you make sure that you stop at every shop that you might service and tell them, listen, if you want service, you got to pay me some money now. What the politicians in the Caribbean are doing right now is nothing less than mob rule. There are elected dictators who get into politics purely for the benefit of power and money. And I think it is a shame that our people, and I'm not making racial overtones in any way. What we are making here are African dictators out of Caribbean people. People get into politics purely for the money, for the power.
All right, we have a politician sitting here, so this is a good
Oh,
opportunity.
that's fine. I'm willing to talk with them, but
Yeah,
what I talk is reality.
Hold on, I just want to bring him, James, I just want to bring him in and get his response. Terry, you're here, and what this gentleman is saying. Let's hear your verdict.
Well, very pleasant good morning to you, James.
Morning, sir.
And very pleasant good morning to mothers all over Grenada and throughout the entire Caribbean region. Want to wish them all a very happy Mother's Day. James, you have made a very important point there. We are seeing dictatorship throughout the region over and over, and it is not very enchanting at all. Our Caribbean people, unfortunately, are now subjected to political dictatorship in most of the islands, and it's most unfortunate. However, the discussion today is on LIAT, and recently I've been sounding a note as to how LIAT can raise revenue and for the people of the Caribbean to participate. I do not fully share the view that politicians in the region should continuously take taxpayers' money and plow it into a private entity. I also believe that the people of the region must show their willingness to contribute or to invest in what is theirs, what is ours. LIAT is family. LIAT is like Caribbean cricket. LIAT represents CSME. LIAT represents CARICOM. And if we, the people of the Caribbean, don't step forward to contribute in some meaningful way towards Caribbean development and integration, then we will be all sadly missed along the route. I believe, and I have proposed over the last few weeks, that, for example, the 5 shareholder governments in the region, they each have access or control over the water companies. These water companies are nationalized. For example, in Grenada's case, our National Water and Sewage Authority, the water company, has a minimum of just about 70,000 accounts. And if we knock off 20,000 for persons who are not interested in investing or they are unable, whatever the case may be, but let's work with 50,000. And if we work with 50,000 accounts in most of the islands, use Grenada's case, I was proposing $100 investment through such an entity, simply because they have an accounting system already in place. There is an account going, everybody drinks water, everybody uses water. So it's an easy system. It can also be worked via electricity companies. But let's stick with the water companies because government can easily pass legislation and get it going. So let's reduce it now from $100 to $100 EC investment by account holders. 50,000 by $100 will yield 5 million EC dollars right away. What would the client get back in return? LIAT must make a commitment to contribute to that investment 300%. It sounds outrageous,
But the fact of the matter is, when you hear the proposal through, you would realize that there is a win-win situation, not just for LIAT, but for the people of the Caribbean. Because the people of the Caribbean have supported LIAT in the good times, the bad times, and it's about time that the people of the Caribbean get back something from LIAT. But at the same time, they will be contributing towards LIAT's success.
All right.
So, you invest 100 EC dollars through your water account. The water company will be obligated to give you a voucher or MCO, call it whatever document you wish. It's like a bond document. And that will indicate that you are now entitled to 300%. But there's a big but. You're not going to get it back in cash from LIAT as an investment. You will get it back in services. You can use it to pay for cargo, to pay for quick pack, to pay for baggage, or even your travel ticket. But all of these services will be subject to load. And it will be valid for a minimum of 3 years. You can transfer it to family, friends, whosoever you wish. The government must also agree that that bond document can also be used to pay government taxes by individuals, or to even pay the said water rates, or may even be able to use it in supermarkets. The thinking behind it is that there will be a win-win situation for the Caribbean people and for LIAT. And if this is replicated in at least 5 shareholder governments, you are raising in a one-off shot 25 million EC dollars right away, within a matter of 30 days. And if this is replicated every year or 2 years, there is a win-win situation for both parties.
All right, let me hear your take on this, James, because I understand that you too have made a proposal to the Prime Minister of Barbados.
Well, responding to the gentleman's suggestion.
James, keep your head up. We need to see that face of yours. Thank you very much.
Responding to the gentleman's proposal, basically what he's suggesting is just putting more taxes on top of the people who are paying for the services. They're already paying departure tax, security tax, you name them. This is a list of about 7 or 8 different taxes that are loaded onto them now. And whether they can pay for something else with it or not, they're being taxed. They have to pull money from their pocket. So I can't say I agree with that approach. The suggestions I have provided to everybody that I spoke to about this is to stop this fooling around, stop this political nonsense, stop this layman approach where you cast around, you look for anybody who has money and beg them for it. That's not a business approach. The business approach is to pull the parasites out of LIAT's backside, install professionals, and let the professionals turn LIAT around, break even, and then get to a point where LIAT is providing revenue to the treasuries. LIAT can provide revenue. I'll give you 2 statistics. 5 years ago, LIAT was carrying 3,000 people a year. 3 million people a year. Right now, LIAT is down to 1.5 million a year. What you have to ask yourself, why is that? Because the taxes and the fees are at a point where people simply cannot afford to travel anymore. And this is a closed circle where less people travel, so LIAT has less money. So the government puts on more taxes, LIAT puts on more fees, and costs go up, and people can't afford to travel. More people can't afford to travel, and the number of people traveling go down. It's a closed cycle. I have fixed suggestions about what to do with LIAT because I'm a professional. I am an aviation professional. I know how things are supposed to happen. And management in LIAT are all, when I say management, the executive, the CEO and the board are all amateurs. They know nothing about aviation. The current CEO came to my attention when she was a bookkeeper at Ammon Resorts in Barbados. Either she got fired or she left and she went to looking for work elsewhere. I will never say the person's name, but she did an interview with a person in tourism marketing, and he has provided me with the information that when he did the interview, she could not even prove that she had her accounting qualifications. There's a lot of stuff she didn't know what he was talking about. So he didn't give her the job. So apparently she ran back to her friend Gene Holder, chairman of LIAT. Gene Holder gave her a job as CFO of LIAT. Now, bearing in mind that LIAT does not publish in public its annual accounts and has not for the last 40 or 50 years, when she does the accounts or when she oversees the accounts of LIAT, there's no danger anybody going to see them. So there's no danger for her to have the CFO position. So now comes a year later or 2 years later, and guess what? The CEO position is available, and guess what? She's qualified for that too somehow. The saving of LIAT is a relatively easy process. The hard part is getting the politicians to step aside, especially a little short, fat one, a little north of Grenada there. He has been stopping LIAT from going forward for decades. It was probably about 10 years ago that I went to a bank in Turkey and I arranged to borrow $200 million for the purpose of buying the majority of LIAT. And I made a formal proposal to Ralph Gonzalez as chairman of LIAT, and I said, I will put $200 million into LIAT as long as I have control over the board and management. I didn't hear a word from him for about 2 weeks, and eventually I heard he was going to have a press conference in St. Vincent, and I planted the seed with one of the journalists there, and he asked the question, well, what about this offer to buy most of LIAT? And he referred to me as a buccaneer. He said he would never sell LIAT to a buccaneer like me. Now, where he got the idea that I was a buccaneer, but he seemed to be highly offended that I would ever propose to take control of LIAT away from him. This is who you're dealing with. Saving LIAT is relatively easy. It's straightforward. Pull the parasites out of LIAT and put in professional management and let them do what they're supposed to do. They know what they're doing. They've done it before. Put in a turnaround artist. I can put you in contact with one right now. But you're not going to move management or board from LIAT if the politicians do not allow you to. The politicians work for us. We don't work for them. But none of them seem to recognize that fact. Once they become elected, they're the dictators. And they will dictate for 4 years or however long. We seem to have everything backwards in this world nowadays. You know, Donald Trump doesn't. We don't work. Americans don't work for Donald Trump. Donald Trump is supposed to be working for them. If you get my drift, I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
I hear you. All right.
But George, if I can just pull in there quickly. James, I believe out of this discussion, we have agreed on all the points that you have made. Save and accept how we will get the money. LIAT cannot go to a financial institution to raise a mortgage. And we have to accept that reality. LIAT is choked all the way up to the eyeballs in loans. Where are they going to get the money from? That is the $100 question which I have put forward, and you have not yet said why that proposal is not realistic.
In return, let me say this. How did LIAT get $100 million US out of the CDB?
Well, politics again.
Politics again, because you see, they got it the wrong way around. CDB does not work for the politicians.
But
right?
they have influence.
Somehow the politicians are calling the shots of the CDB.
This is why LIAT is where it is. Too much politics. We agree on all of that. And we have to fix management, etc. We have to get right equipment. All of these things, we all agree in principle. The only thing that we are missing right now is how are we going to get the money to LIAT to survive, to provide that much needed service.
Equipment is one of the sore points that I have, in that Captain Ian Brunton, who was CEO of Caribbean Airlines. I don't know if you know that, but while he was at Caribbean Airlines bought $100 million worth of ATRs. We later found out that he got a commission on those.
Well, that's the same problem that LIAT experienced.
Now he comes to LIAT, and while he's CEO of LIAT buys $100 million in ATRs,
and those
he gets commission on them too.
And those were improper aircrafts for the type of route LIAT is serving. We agree on that. Improper.
Those are aircraft for commuter use, light commuter use.
Executive style
like
aircrafts.
in Japan.
Yeah.
All right. That was an excerpt from yesterday's edition of SWGG as the debate on LIAT rages on. Folks, while you were listening to that, a number of you posted some stuff here on social media. Let me share that with you. John Crow Alexander says, Terry's proposal sounds fickle. Then John Kennison comes up and says, LIAT, James is right. Get politics out and professional management in. Then he goes on to say, and I think he's referring to Terry's proposal here, sounds like it could be easily scammed. He's referring to the proposal. And then we move on down the line here, and Margaret says, as always, John, the only way they know to solve a problem is to throw money at it. No talk about accountability, efficiency, and management. John, you're sure right about that. Who is going to ensure that the money ends up where it is supposed to? Okay, Mags. Petra Andrew Thomas says, accountability is essential in any growth for anything to really happen in running a business. Benedict Cador says, Terry is not listening. John comes back here and says, he's responding to Margaret, and he says, exactly my point. There are people in offices working on this, even as we type. Yeah, John. And government too, he says. Okay. All right, folks. Just before we pull the curtain down this morning, I want to share a note with you which I received from the Big Apple. You're being invited by one Mr. Jerry Hopkin in the New York area to the Comedic Caribbean Folklore Show. Actually, there are two shows featuring Ricardo Keynes Douglas, Lord Nelson, and Quake USA on Father's Day, June 16th in Brooklyn, and another show in Washington, D.C. on June 8th. Huh? Okay. At those shows, you'll find Ricardo Keynes Douglas, Jillian Moore, Diane and Friends, that's a group of Afro-Caribbean dancers. They will also be appearing, and classic calypso and comedic storytelling will be the order on both days. Just a little bit more detail here. The pre-Father's Day show on June 8th will be held at the Holy Comforter John T. Walker Learning Center. That's at 4701 Oglethorpe Street. While the Father's Day show, and that, by the way, is in Brooklyn. Hold on a minute. The Oglethorpe Street. While the Father's Day show will be held in New York at the NYC Tropical Reflections Ballroom, and that is located at 4501 Glenwood Road in Brooklyn. So the one at Oglethorpe Street is in Washington, D.C. You're being asked to make a $30 donation in advance. All right? So there you have it. Let me see here. I think that's all the information in that piece from, if you're looking for some more information, try calling, I would imagine, Jerry at 347-350-4285. All right? I think that's it. Okay. Irvin Samuel says, good morning, George and fellow Grenadians. Solution for LIAT. Remove 100% politics from LIAT. Total privatization of LIAT, giving priority to LIAT's experienced staff members for new ownership. Also, governments of countries serviced by LIAT should guarantee the necessary financing. New LIAT needs, what is this? Should guarantee the necessary financing the new LIAT needs for restructuring. Thank you very much, Irvin. Do appreciate your comment there. And I think that's just about going to do it. But, parting word from the Holy Scriptures. Today, Hebrews chapter 6, verses 10, 11, and 12. Quote, God is not unjust. He will not forget your work and the love you have shown him as you have helped his people and continue to help them. We want each of you to know the same diligence to the very end, so that what you hope for may be fully realized. We do not want you to become lazy, but to imitate those who, through faith and patience, inherit what is promised. That passage, pilgrims, Hebrews chapter 6, verses 10, 11, and 12. Okie doke. It's now 14 minutes after the hour. That's going to do it for today's edition. Thank you very much for joining us. And by God's grace, we will be back here tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., for the next edition of Gudday Grenada.